Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be building a very simple POKEDEX application. The app goes as follows. Here we're looking at an example of the finished product. You'll notice minimal styling. There's an input box, so I can type in a Pokemon Charmander. Click on submit. It's going to fetch from an API called PokeAPI, show the Pokemon name, an image of that Pokemon, as well as the type. And you'll see if I have a Pokemon with two types, Charizard, it'll show fire flying as well. So let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a variable that's going to represent the API that we're going to hit. The API is called PokeAPI. It's a pretty common API for a lot of these beginner Pokemon applications. So we'll go API underscore base equals https://pokeapi.co/api/v2/Pokemon. And if you're wondering where this is coming from, here's the website pokeapi.co, and this is the API here. There's other endpoints, but what we're using here is this API right here /Pokemon. So now that we have our API base set, this app has two main pieces of state. The first one we're going to call Pokemon data. Set Pokemon data equals use state, and it's going to start off as null. And the second main piece of state we're going to have here is for the searched Pokemon. Then set searched Pokemon, and that's going to start off as an empty string. Use state empty string. So we get an error there. I'm just going to import clicking this will auto import here on line 1. It'll save, so now we're not getting that error. We're going to go one more piece of state, but it's going to be for the error message. Error set error, and this is also going to be started as initial state of null. So this app really only has one main function, that function of the functionality of grabbing the data from the API and then putting it into our state. So we're going to create that function right now. Still above the return statement, we're going to create a function called fetch Pokemon. That's going to be an async function. You can also do this with .then or fetch API, and then, or we're going to use a fetch API, but you can also use then chaining. But here we're going to use async await, taking an E for the event object, make this into an arrow function, and we're going to need a try catch. So in order to catch an error, so that we can put an error message onto our screen if we search for an invalid Pokemon. So first thing here is e.prevent default, so that when we submit this little mini form we're creating, the form doesn't try to submit. And then in the try block here, create a little bit more room for ourselves. We're going to go const fetch data is equal to await fetch. We're going to use that API base URL that we already declared up here on line 5. And then we're going to go plus searched Pokemon, which we'll cover in a sec how we're going to get that value, but this is going to be this piece of state here. And then for now, actually, I'm going to keep it like that. Just keep it simple. So I'll explain kind of how this is working in a second. And then we need to move this data into JSON data so we can manipulate it. Fetch data.json, and now that's in this variable called JSON. And then we are going to set Pokemon data to that JSON object, and then from there that'll be put into this Pokemon data state variable, and then we can grab what we want for it, and then that is going to be the data we're going to output onto the screen. And then we'll go to our catch block, and again, this is for the cases where we put a Pokemon that doesn't exist, like you put in a Mudmon. I don't think that's one. It'll show up as an error on the screen, so we're going to, first of all, just for our console, we'll go console.error ERR, and then set error. It's going to be set to the message of a string, no such Pokemon. So now we're going to head down to our JSX and start to build those UI components. Inside of the div tag, we're going to have a form. We can get rid of this action. Form is going to have on submit function. That's going to be equal to that function that we just created called fetch Pokemon. Open this up in here. We need two input elements. Input type text, and then an input type of submit. And then in the input type of text here, this is where we're going to make it possible for our application to grab the searched Pokemon value. So we're going to go, the value of this input element is going to be this searched Pokemon piece of state. And then we need a way to change that. So we're going to go on change equals in these curly brackets, takes in the event, and then we're going to go set searched Pokemon to e.target.value. So this means that as we're typing in the input field, see this input field here, which I just saved the file, and I have this set up for the automatic reloading because the terminal started. Now if I type in here, this is going to automatically update this piece of state up here with whatever is in this input box. So that's how you do that. So now that our form is done, one more little bit in our JSX, and this is going to represent either the error message or the Pokemon itself. So we're going to open this up inside of curly brackets so we can put some JSX in here. We're going to, if there's an error, we're going to output a div onto the page. This was some HTML tags here. Inside of this is going to be the value of the error, which it will initially be set to null. But as I said in our catch case, in our try catch block, if we do get an error, we're going to set that to no such Pokemon. So if there is an error, this error value in this state returns as a truthy value. The value that's going to be output onto the screen is the error message of no such Pokemon. But if everything worked correctly, like we expect it to, if we search like a real Pokemon like Pikachu, then we want a Pokemon component to show up. And that's this ternary operator. So error, if this is true, we get this error message. If not, and if everything worked properly, we're going to do a Pokemon component, which we're going to create right now. It's going to take in one prop here, and it's going to be called Pokemon. And it's going to take in that Pokemon data piece of state. And then we'll just correctly close this Pokemon component and then save the file. And you see we got an error actually. But now we're going to be building this Pokemon component, so we'll get rid of that error. But we'll go to the Pokemon component now. So here we're going to create a new file in the SRC. Create a file, capital P Pokemon.js. We're going to go run RAFCE tab. And that's going to create our basic boilerplate for our Pokemon component. So this is going to take in one prop, and that's called, we're going to call it Pokemon. We're going to use curly brackets to destructure that as well, so we don't have to use the props keyword. First thing here is just going to be a check, because we don't want this Pokemon component to load up anything if our initial state of the Pokemon is null, like if we haven't searched anything yet. So in order to prevent errors from happening in our app, we'll go if Pokemon equals null, just return to get out of the function. So none of this JSX that we're going to build in a sec here will try to run. Now, just so we understand what we're working with, this Pokemon is going to be a JSON object. So to see what we're doing, so I'm not just doing this all on the screen here, and then you're kind of wondering where is he actually getting this information from. We're going to console.log the Pokemon. So I will inspect, I'll move my head out of the way so we can see this. And so as I mentioned here, we want to see what the data is in that object, but I realized that I made one error here, at least one at least. In this API-based string, I have to end with another slash so that the new string will read Pokemon slash another Pokemon and not just Pokemon without the slash. So it wasn't working because I needed to add this slash here. So if you're coding along with me, add that slash there. Another quick thing here, make sure that you import the component So we're going to go import Pokemon from ./Pokemon so that the two files know about each other. Head back to Pokemon.js. Now we're going to search Pikachu. We'll click submit. And then good. This actually renders twice. It's kind of a quirk of the Create React app. But now, so we have this data here that represents that Pokemon object. And what we want is the name. We want in the sprites. These are the represent the pictures. So we're creating we'll create an image tag using one of these sprites. And we also want to do types. So we'll have to map through the types to get the name of the types, whether there's one or two. Some Pokemon have one type, some have two. So using that data, we're going to create a few variables that we'll be able to use to grab out the data that we want out of that object. So we're going to go const name equals Pokemon.name. And that's going to obviously be representing the name of the Pokemon. Go new line. Const image is equal to Pokemon.sprites.front_default. And if you want to look more at the object yourself, you're free to, obviously. And then we're going to go const types equals to Pokemon.types. And then we're going to go .map. So we're going to map through the types array that either, again, comes back with one or two elements. And then the map function returns a new array. And we're going to go use LEL as a parameter there. And we're going to look for using that .type. So type kind of appears twice here. .name. And that's going to allow us, again, like I said, to map through the types array, getting the type.name. And then one final variable, we're going to go types string equals types.join. So that, because as of right now, these types are going to be represented in an array, but we actually want a string. So we're going to go join on comma. Next step is we are going to output these variables that we just created into our JSX, and then we'll be able to see the Pokemon that we fetched from the API represented in our browser. We're going to create another div here, curly brackets, name. Actually an image tag underneath, src, curly brace, we can put a value in there, is going to be image, alt, we'll say Pokemon. And then the final div here is going to be types string. You see, it's already starting to work, so that's great. Now, again, our app is reloading. I have the terminal loaded up. So we'll do some checks here to see if everything is working. We'll actually head back to our app.js. Give us some more room. So we'll go Pikachu, that works, cool, submit. I mean, that's how it's already there. We'll go ditto, submit, that seems to be working. We'll do another one, Raichu, submit. I think that this should work with like any Pokemon, so most people just know the first 150 or so, but like a newer Pokemon I think will still work. Yeah, so that works as well. That's cool. So we'll check our error message as well, see if that works. So we'll just put in some gibberish here. Submit, it should show no such Pokemon. That's good. You see how it took a little bit of time too? That was it. Basically, checking the API, doesn't come up with anything. Then it'll return the message of no such Pokemon. So that's it, hitting this line 22 here in our catch case. We'll do very quick UI improvements here. So one thing is when we search a Pokemon, submit. Oh, see, look, this is actually another thing. I need to be able to clear this out so it's not just, this doesn't just persist. So when I do get that no such Pokemon message, I want to be able to put in another Pokemon and then get something new back, but it's keeping this error as set to this no such Pokemon. So I'm going to have to go right here, set error back to null. That should fix that. So we'll go ditto, we'll submit. See, that did fix that. That's good. One other thing we're going to go here, set searched Pokemon after we get the Pokemon data back, or so we set our Pokemon data rather in the Pokemon data array state variable. I'm saying the word Pokemon a lot. Set searched Pokemon empty string. And then now we'll go back here, Pikachu, we'll click submit. So that clears out now, so it's a little bit better of a UI experience. And we're going to do one more thing to make sure that, so say I put this in all caps, Pikachu. See, that doesn't actually work, but we want the user to be able to do that. So on this search Pokemon variable here on line 16, we will go .to lowercase, invoke that with the parentheses, click save. Now in here, we'll go Charizard, all caps, submit, and now it still works. So that's what we want. So very simple Pokemon app, obviously very limited styling, but I hope you coded along and got some value out of that. And thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you in the next video.